The sun was setting behind the hills when the school compound fell silent. The dusty football field glowed orange, and the chirping of crickets filled the air. At the far end, near the mango tree, the old teacher stood frozen, his hands trembling as his eyes fixed on the young woman before him. She was tall now, graceful, dressed in a flowing gown, her hair wrapped neatly in a bright scarf. In her hands was a long, narrow box, wrapped in gold paper and tied with a red ribbon. "Do you remember me?" she asked, her voice calm but heavy with meaning. His eyes narrowed as he searched her face. Something flickered, recognition, guilt, disbelief. She stepped closer, the box between them. "Years ago, you told me I didn't belong in your class because of my torn shoes, and you sent me home. That day changed my life." Her eyes glistened, but her smile was faint and controlled. "Today, I came to give you something." She held out the gift. His hands hovered in the air, hesitant. The villagers who had gathered to watch murmured, wondering what could be inside. When he finally opened the box, what he saw made his lips part, but no sound came out. His knees shook as if the earth had moved under him. The village of Ojunla was small, but full of life. Narrow red dirt paths weaved between mud brick houses, and the air often smelled of roasted maize from a market square. Children played barefoot, chasing old tires down the road, while elders sat under the giant baobab tree, telling stories of days gone by. The people of Ojunla valued respect, hard work, and appearances. On market days, even the poorest villager wore their cleanest clothes, for it was believed that how you looked reflected how you lived. But for some families, no amount of scrubbing could hide the signs of poverty. Among the children of Ojunla was a quiet, thin girl named Amina. She lived with her grandmother in a small hut by the stream. Her parents had died when she was 5, leaving her grandmother to raise her with what little she earned from weaving baskets. Amina was known for 2 things, her quick mind and her old, torn shoes. Those shoes were once bright blue, but now the color had faded. The leather cracked, the seams loose, and the soles so thin that Amina's toes often peeked out. Still, she wore them every day to school, because they were her only pair. Her favorite place in the whole village was Ojunla Primary School. The classrooms were simple, wooden benches, chalkboards, and open windows, but to Amina, it was a palace of knowledge. She loved the smell of chalk dust and the sound of pages turning. More than anything, she loved learning. Her teacher, Mr. Follerin, was a tall man with sharp eyes and a voice that could silence a room. He believed in discipline, order, and keeping up the school's good image. To him, a child's appearance was a reflection of the teacher's standards. And though he sometimes praised Amina for her answers, his eyes always drifted to her shoes with disapproval. One bright Monday morning, Amina sat in class, copying notes about the rivers of Africa. The sun streamed to the windows, and the class was unusually quiet. But when Mr. Follerin walked in, his eyes went straight to her feet. "Stand up," he said sharply. The other children glanced at each other, sensing trouble. Amina's heart thumped as she rose, clutching her exercise book. "Come to the front," he ordered. She walked slowly, the worn soles flapping softly against the floor. When she stood before him, he pointed to her shoes. "Look at this," he said to the class. "Is this how a pupil should come to school? With shoes that look like they belong in the rubbish pit?" Some children giggled. Amina felt her cheeks burn. "You bring shame to this class," Mr. Follerin continued. "We are not beggars. If you cannot come properly dressed, then you should not come at all." A lump formed in Amina's throat. "Sir, these are the only shoes I have," she whispered. "That is not my problem," he said coldly. "Go home. Don't come back until you have proper shoes." The words hit her harder than a slap. Her classmates stared as she picked up her bag and walked out. The bright morning felt darker now, and the sound of her own footsteps seemed too loud. She didn't know it yet, but that moment, humiliating and cruel, would be the seed of a journey that would change her life forever. That evening, as she sat with her grandmother, the tears finally came, and in that quiet hut, with the smell of boiling yam in the air, Amina made herself a silent promise. She would return to that school one day, but when she did, it would not be as the poor girl with torn shoes, and the way she would keep that promise would surprise everyone. The next morning, the school bell rang, but Amina was not there. She sat by the stream, throwing small stones into the water, her knees pulled to her chest. The sight of other children walking past in their uniforms stung her heart. Her grandmother, Mama Saad, noticed her silence. "My child," she said gently, "why are you not at school?" Amina kept her eyes on the rippling water. "Mr. Folarin sent me home. He said I can't come back until I have new shoes." Mama Saad sighed, her thin shoulders sagging. These old feet of mine have walked many years, but I still cannot understand why some people value cloth and leather over a child's mind." She rubbed her granddaughter's back. "We don't have money for shoes now, but there is more than one way to walk through life." But Amina's mind was restless. All day she thought of her books, her classmates, the lessons she was missing. That night, lying on her raffia mat, she whispered to herself, "If they don't want me in school because of my shoes, then I will find another way to learn." The following weeks were strange. Instead of going to school, Amina helped her grandmother weave baskets. She listened to the market women gossip about politics, to the hunters boast about their journeys, and to the elders tell stories under the baobab tree. She began to notice that lessons didn't only live in classrooms. They were hidden in people, in the land, in the winds whisper through the grass. Still, the hurt of being sent away burned inside her. It wasn't just the loss of school. It was a humiliation, the laughter of her classmates, the way Mr. Folarin's words made her feel small. One afternoon, as she carried a bundle of baskets to the market, she overheard two traders talking about a merchant who had come from the city. He was buying local goods to sell in big towns far away. Amina's heart quickened. Maybe this was a way to earn something for herself, and maybe, just maybe, buy those shoes. She followed the trader's directions until she found the merchant, a plump man with a wide smile, sitting under a shade with piles of yams and cassava stacked behind him. Gathering her courage, Amina stepped forward. "Sir," she said, "my grandmother and I weave strong baskets. They can carry heavy yams and still last for years. Will you buy some?" The man looked at her, surprised. "You're a bold little one. Bring me your best, and if they are as good as you say, I'll pay you fair." That night, Amina and Mama Saad worked by lantern light, weaving baskets tighter and neater than ever before. For the first time in weeks, hope flickered inside her. But hope is a fragile thing. 2 days later, when she went to deliver the baskets, she found a merchant packing his cart. "Little one," he said, "I'm sorry. I bought from another seller yesterday. I have no space for more." Her hands went cold. "But I worked so hard." "Life is like that sometimes," he shrugged. "Maybe next time." She stood there, watching the cart roll away, dust rising behind it. The baskets felt heavy in her arms, heavier than they truly were. The chance she thought she had found slipped away, and the road ahead looked even longer. That night, under the quiet hum of crickets, she made a new vow. Not just to return to school, but to rise so high that even those who once shamed her would have no choice but to respect her. And she decided she would leave Ojunla to do it. But leaving would mean walking into a world she had never seen, a world that could swallow a poor village girl whole. The morning Amina left Ojunla, the sky was painted with soft shades of pink and gold. Her grandmother stood at the doorway, hands clasped tightly, fighting back tears. Amina carried only a small cloth bundle, 2 changes of clothes, a calabash of roasted groundnuts, and the basket she hadn't sold. Mama Saad pressed a worn leather pouch into her hand. Inside were 3 old coins. "It is not much," she said, "but it will remind you of home. And remember, the world will test you. Let it shape you, not break you." Amina hugged her tightly, breathing in the faint scent of palm oil and wood smoke. "I'll make you proud, Mama. I promise." The dirt road stretched far ahead, winding between tall elephant grass. She walked for hours, her feet raising small clouds of dust, until she reached the main path to the nearby town of Ajalit. The market that was 3 times the size of Ojunla's, full of colors, smells, and sounds she had never known. Women selling piles of bright oranges, men pounding yam in wooden mortars, traders shouting prices above the noise. She decided to start small. Under a neem tree at the market's edge, She laid out her baskets. At first, people only glanced as they passed, too busy or too hurried. But by midday, a young woman stopped to run her fingers over the weave. "These are strong," she said. "How much?" When Amina named her price, the woman smiled. "I'll take 2. It was a small victory, but enough to give her courage. She spent the night curled up behind the neem tree, using her cloth bundle as a pillow. The night air was cold, and the buzzing of mosquitoes made it hard to sleep, but her heart felt warmer than it had in weeks. By the 3rd day, she had sold all the baskets. With her earnings, she bought a plate of steaming jollof rice, the first hot meal she'd had since leaving home. She ate slowly, savoring each bite, thinking of her grandmother. But her joy was cut short when a loud commotion broke out in the market. People were shouting, running in different directions. Amina turned just in time to see a tall boy, not much older than herself, sprinting toward her with a bag of stolen fruit. Behind him, a trader was yelling, "Thief! Thief!" Before she could move, the boy darted behind her, using her small frame to block the trader's view. The trader, thinking she was part of it, grabbed her arm. "You, give back my goods," he barked. "I didn't take anything." Amina cried, but her voice was drowned out by the noise. The boy slipped away into chaos, and the trader, convinced of her guilt, dragged her toward a group of market guards. Their leader was a broad-chested man with a whip at his side. "We don't like thieves here," he growled. "You'll spend the night in the holding shed until we decide what to do with you." Amina's heart pounded. She had left Ojunla to chase hope, but now it seemed the world was determined to crush her before she could even begin. The shed's door closed behind her with a heavy thud, the darkness wrapping around her like a cold hand. She sat on the dirt floor, wondering if this was how her dream would end, before it had truly started. And then, from the far corner of the shed, a voice whispered, "I know you're not a thief, but if you want to get out of here, you'll have to help me first." Amina froze. Her eyes strained in the darkness until the faint outline of a girl's face appeared. She was about Amina's age, with bright, sharp eyes that seemed to glint even in the dim light. "Who are you?" Amina whispered. The girl crawled closer. "My name is Ife. I've been in here for 2 days. They think I stole a trader's goat." She smirked faintly. "I didn't. But once the guards decide you're guilty, they won't bother with the truth." Amina's chest tightened. "So what do we do?" Ife's voice lowered. "There's a loose plank at the back wall. I've been working on it with a piece of metal I found. I can push it free tonight. But I can't carry all my things alone." Amina hesitated. "If we escape, where will we go? They'll chase us." Ife smiled like someone used to trouble. "Not if we go where they won't follow. The night market by the river. It's bigger and noisier, and the guards fear the river spirits. From there, we can blend in." The hours dragged until night fell. When the market sounds outside finally died down, Ife pulled out a bent nail from her sleeve and began prying at the plank. The sound of its splitting was muffled by the chorus of crickets. When the hole was just wide enough, they squeezed through into the cool night air. Amina's heart pounded as they crept behind a row of empty stalls, keeping to the shadows. Once they reached the outer edge of the market, they broke into a run, their bare feet silent on the sandy path. The river came into view, silver under moonlight. The night market that was unlike anything Amina had ever seen, lanterns hanging from ropes, drums beating in the distance, and stalls crowded with people selling everything from dried fish to carved amulets. The air smelled of pepper soup and roasting plantain. Ife led her to a corner where a tall, thin man was setting out clay bowls. "This is Baba Kareem," she said. "He knows everyone here, and for a price, he can make problems disappear." The man studied Amina with a slow, measuring look. "So you're the one who was accused of theft today. You have the eyes of someone who still believes in the good of people. But the world will teach you otherwise." "I didn't steal anything," Amina said firmly. "That's not important," Baba Kareem replied. "What's important is what you do next." He tapped the table. "I can keep the guard from looking for you, but in return, you'll work for me until your debt is paid." Amina's instinct told her to refuse. She didn't trust this man. But the thought of being thrown back into the holding shed made her stomach twist. She glanced at Aoife, who gave her the smallest nod. "Fine," Amina said. "I'll work." Baba Kareem's lips curled into a thin smile. "Good. You'll start tomorrow. We have a shipment going to the big city of Ijora. If you work hard there, the world will open to you." Amina didn't yet understand what kind of work this would be, or how dangerous Ijora could be for a village girl with nothing but determination. But she would soon find out. And once she did, there would be no turning back. The road to Ijora was long and crowded. Amina rode in the back of a creaky cart filled with sacks of dried pepper, her knees tucked to her chest. Aoife sat beside her, munching on roasted groundnuts and humming a tune. As they traveled, the landscape changed. The open fields and dusty paths of Ojumla gave way to wide roads lined with palm trees, rows of busy shops, and tall buildings that seemed to scrape the sky. The air smelled different, part smoke, part spice, part something new and exciting. "This city," Aoife said, leaning close, "can either swallow you whole or turn you into someone the world has to notice. The trick is deciding what you'll let it do." When they arrived, Baba Kareem's men unloaded the cart in a bustling street market where the noise was almost deafening. Traders shouted prices. Children weaved between stalls selling roasted corn, and music poured from nearby bars. Baba Kareem led them into a narrow alley and stopped in front of a small shop. "You two will work here," he said, unlocking the door. Inside were shelves stacked with fabrics in bright colors and shimmering patterns. "This is my friend Madame Ronk's textile shop. You will sweep, clean, and help with customers. Do it well, and you'll earn more than coins. You'll earn a place in the city." Amina set to work immediately. The first few days were hard, lifting heavy rolls of fabric, dealing with impatient customers, and keeping up with Madame Ronk's sharp tongue. But each night, when she lay on the thin mat in the back room, she felt a strange kind of satisfaction. She was learning how to speak confidently, how to bargain, how to read the expressions on people's faces. One evening, after closing the shop, Madame Ronk pulled her aside. "You have quick eyes, girl, and your hands fold cloth neater than some of my apprentices. Do you want to learn more than sweeping and carrying?" Amina's heart skipped. "Yes, ma'am." "Then watch closely," Madame Ronk said, showing her how to measure fabric with precision, how to match colors so they sang together, and how to spot quality from a single touch. Weeks passed, and Amina grew more skilled. She began to understand that the city rewarded those who could offer something valuable, and she was learning to offer plenty. Still, she never forgot her promise to herself. One day, she would return to Ojumla, and she would not return empty-handed. Then came the day everything shifted. A wealthy woman in a flowing lace gown entered the shop, looking for someone to make her a special garment for her daughter's wedding. Madame Ronk was busy, so she waved Amina over. "Take her measurements, choose a cloth, and make sure she leaves happy," she instructed. Amina's hand shook slightly, but she greeted the woman warmly, guiding her to the best fabrics. She listened carefully to what the woman wanted, suggested colors, and even sketched a simple design on a scrap of paper. The woman's eyes lit up. "You're not just a shop girl," she said. "You have a gift." Before leaving, she handed Amina a small card with her name and address. "If you ever want work in my design house, come find me. We make clothes for governors' wives and foreign guests. You'd learn things that would take you far." That night, Amina lay awake, turning the card over and over in her hands. This could be the opportunity she had been waiting for. But leaving Baba Kareem's protection without his permission could mean trouble, serious trouble. And trouble was exactly what found her the next morning, when Baba Kareem walked into the shop holding the very same card between his fingers. "How?" he asked in a slow, dangerous voice. "Did you get this?" Amina's stomach nodded. Baba Kareem's eyes, usually lazy and half-closed, now burned like hot coals. He waved the card in front of her face. "You think you can work for me, eat my food, sleep under my roof, and then go behind my back to make deals?" His voice was calm, but there was steel underneath. Amina swallowed hard. She came to the shop. "I didn't—" "Silence," he snapped. The sound cut through the air like a whip. Aoife, who had been folding fabric in the corner, froze mid-motion. Baba Kareem stepped closer until she could smell the faint mix of tobacco and palm wine on his breath. You belong to me until I say otherwise. Do you understand? I am not a slave, Amina said quietly, her fists clenched. The words seemed to shock even herself. Aoife's eyes widened, darting between them. Baba Kareem's jaw tightened. You're brave for a village girl, but bravery without power is just foolishness. I will teach you what happens to people who cross me. That night, Madame Ronk sent Amina home early, sensing the storm in the air. But instead of going to the back room, Aoife grabbed her wrist. We have to leave, she whispered urgently. Tonight. Amina hesitated. And go where? To the woman from the design house. If you wait, Baba Kareem will make sure you never have the chance again. The decision tore at her. Staying meant safety, food, and a roof, but also change she couldn't see. Leaving meant risking everything, but maybe, just maybe, finding the path toward her dream. When the market quieted and the lanterns dimmed, the two girls slipped out through a side door, sticking to the narrowest alleys. The card felt like a burning ember in Amina's pocket, guiding her forward. But the city at night was a different beast. The streets twisted like a maze, and shadows moved where no people were. At one point, a group of men emerged from a doorway, blocking the path. Well, one of them said, stepping into the moonlight, Baba Kareem's little workers wandering alone? That's dangerous and unlucky. Amina's pulse raced. She realized then that these men weren't strangers. They worked for Baba Kareem. You're coming with us, another one said, reaching for her arm. Aoife grabbed her hand and pulled. Run! They tore down the street, the men's footsteps pounding behind them. The maze of alleys blurred, the sound of shouting voices bouncing off the walls. Amina's chest burned, her breath ragged, but she didn't dare stop. Up ahead, the alley split into two narrow paths, one dark and silent, the other lit by the glow of lanterns and the sound of drums. Without thinking, Amina yanked Aoife toward the light. It was a gamble, and in the next few moments, she would either find safety or run straight into the hands of someone even worse than Baba Kareem. The alley opened into a small courtyard alive with music and laughter. Drummers sat in a circle, their hands a blur on taut skins, while dancers in bright wrappers spun and stamped the rhythm. Lanterns swayed overhead, casting gold light over the crowd. The sudden burst of life masked their arrival. No one noticed the two breathless girls pressing themselves against the wall, scanning for danger. Amina's eyes darted to the entrance. Baba Kareem's men had paused at the edge of the crowd, scanning faces but unwilling to push through the dancers. The music, the movement, and the watching eyes of strangers made it harder for them to act openly. They won't, but they'll wait, Amina replied. Her gaze swept the courtyard until it landed on something, or rather, someone unexpected. The wealthy woman from the textile shop, the one who had given her the card, was seated on a low stool in a corner, speaking with a tailor who was showing her a long roll of patterned cloth. Amina's heart leapt. There she is, she whispered. Without thinking, she pushed through the crowd, weaving between spinning dancers and dodging swaying elbows. Aoife followed close behind. The woman looked up as they approached, surprise flashing in her eyes. You, she said, recognition softening her voice. Amina dropped to her knees in front of her. Please, I need your help. Baba Kareem, he's keeping me here. I want to work for you, to learn, to build something for myself. But if I go back, I'll never be free. The woman's brows knit together. Get up, she said firmly, glancing toward the edge of the courtyard. She had already spotted the men waiting. We can't talk here. Follow me, quickly. She rose and slipped through a side passage that led into a narrow street lined with shuttered shops. The drumming grew faint behind them. Her carriage was parked at the end of the road. Get in, she ordered. Aoife and Amina climbed inside, their hearts still racing. The woman shut the door and spoke briefly to the driver before settling into the seat opposite them. My name is Madame McCannum, she said at last. If you work for me, you work hard. No games, no laziness. In return, you'll be under my protection. But understand, once Baba Kareem realizes you're gone, he may not give up easily. I'll work harder than anyone, Amina said, her voice steady. The carriage rattled through the streets until they reached a large compound. The gates swung open to reveal a bright courtyard where women bent over sewing machines, needles flashing in the light. Rolls of rich fabric lined the walls, and half-finished gowns hung from wooden stands. This is where you'll learn, Madame McCannum said. If you can survive here, you can survive anywhere. That night, as Amina lay on a clean mat in a small corner room, she could still hear the distant drums. For the first time since she left Ojunla, she felt a solid step closer to her dream. But she also knew Baba Kareem was somewhere in the city, and men like him did not forgive or forget. And she was right, because just 3 days later, a letter arrived at Madame McCannum's compound. It had no name, no signature, only a single line written in bold, uneven strokes. The girl with torn shoes belongs to me. Return her or we come for her. Madame McCannum read the letter twice, her lips pressed into a thin line. She handed it to Amina without a word. Amina's hands trembled as she read the bold threat. Memories of Baba Kareem's cold eyes and the night chase through the city came flooding back. "What will you do?" she asked in a low voice. Madame McCannum looked straight at her. "What will you do? This is your fight. Do you want to run again? Or do you want to stand where they can't touch you?" Amina swallowed hard. She thought of her grandmother, of Ojunla, of that humiliating day she had been sent home for her shoes. She thought of the promise she had made to herself under the dim glow of their small cooking fire. "I will stand," she said. From that day on, Amina worked with fire inside her. She studied every cut, every stitch, every pattern Madame McCannum taught. She learned how to design dresses that made women feel like royalty and how to speak with the confidence of someone who knew her worth. Months passed, and her talent began to draw attention. One afternoon, Madame McCannum placed a small package in her hands. Inside was a brand new pair of polished black shoes. "It's time," she said simply. "Time to go home." When Amina returned to Ojunla, the village was buzzing with market day chatter. Children ran between stalls, and elders sat under the baobab tree. But all conversation stopped when she stepped into the school compound, dressed in a flowing gown of her own design, polished shoes shining in the sunlight. Mr. Fuller was older now, his back slightly bent, but his sharp eyes were still the same. He stared at her as if trying to place her face. "Do you remember me?" Amina asked, his brows furrowed. He stopped. The memory returned to him in a rush. The girl with the torn shoes. "Yes," she said softly. "The one you sent away." Gasps rippled to the crowd of pupils who had gathered to watch. Amina held out a long, narrow box wrapped in gold paper with a red ribbon. "I came to give you something." His fingers fumbled as he opened it. Inside was a pair of the finest leather shoes he had ever seen, handcrafted with care, the stitches perfect. But that wasn't what made his knees shake. It was a small note inside. "For the teacher who taught me my greatest lesson. That worth is not worn on the feet, but carried in the heart." The old man's mouth opened, but no words came. Amina turned to the children watching. "Never let anyone tell you that you don't belong because of what you wear or what you have. Your mind, your courage, those are your true shoes in this world. They will take you farther than you can imagine." That day, harmony returned to Ojunla. The teacher, humbled, never judged a child by their appearance again. And the girl who once walked out of school in shame now walked back in with her head high, carrying the respect of the entire village.